This is why INTJs become silent when emotions rise. Not distant, not cold, not disconnected, just internally occupied. There is a moment, often unnoticed by others, when something inside the INTJ stops moving forward and begins to turn inward instead. The posture remains composed. The expression stays neutral. The voice becomes measured or disappears altogether. But internally, something very precise is happening. A system is being recalibrated. INTJs do not experience emotion as a flood. They experience it as interference. Not because emotions are weak, but because emotions introduce variables. And NITE does not move until the variables make sense. When an emotional signal appears, disappointment, attachment, moral discomfort, relational tension, it does not immediately translate into expression. It enters a holding pattern. It is observed. It is tested. It is compared against internal structure. And this is where the conflict begins. Because FI does not speak the language of structure. FI does not ask whether something is efficient. It asks whether something is true. For the INTJ, this creates an internal contradiction that feels subtle but persistent. NI wants coherence across time. TE wants functional alignment in the external world. FI wants authenticity, even if it disrupts both. And when these three are not aligned, the INTJ does not act. They pause. From the outside, this pause is often misread. People assume withdrawal means lack of care. They assume silence means avoidance. They assume emotional restraint means emotional absence. But internally, the opposite is happening. The INTJ is trying to reconcile two incompatible demands. On one side, NITE is asking, does this make sense within the system I'm building? On the other, FI is asking, does this violate something essential about who I am? This is not a debate that can be rushed. FI does not negotiate under pressure. NI does not clarify under emotional noise. TE does not execute without internal permission. So the system stalls. This is why INTJs often disengage precisely when emotions become intense. Not because they feel nothing, but because they feel something that does not yet have a place. And FI refuses to be placed incorrectly. Unlike FE, which seeks harmony through shared emotional calibration, FI operates privately. It does not broadcast. It does not seek validation. It does not soften itself to be more palatable. FI waits. It waits until the INTJ can say internally, yes, this response is mine. But here is the tension most people never see. NITE wants resolution. FI wants integrity. Resolution can be fast. Integrity cannot. So the INTJ delays. They retreat into analysis, not to escape the emotion, but to protect it from being expressed prematurely. Because once an INTJ expresses something, it becomes part of the external world. And TE does not like retracting statements. NI does not like correcting trajectories. FI does not forgive self-betrayal. This is why INTJs are careful. Not cautious, careful. They would rather say nothing than say something misaligned. They would rather appear distant than be inauthentic. They would rather be misunderstood temporarily than violate their internal standard permanently. This creates a unique relational pattern. When someone pushes an INTJ to just talk about it, the pressure does not open them. It fractures them. Because the request is heard as express before coherence. And that is something NITE will not do. When an INTJ finally opens emotionally, it is not spontaneous. It is post-integration. What you are hearing is not raw emotion. It is processed truth. By the time words appear, the emotion has been examined for origin, tested for consistency, aligned with values, translated into language, filtered for consequence. Only then does it surface. This is why INTJs often surprise others with the depth of what they eventually say. People assume the silence meant absence. They assume the calm meant indifference. And then suddenly, the INTJ articulates something precise, heavy, and uncomfortably honest. That honesty did not arrive late. It arrived finished. But there is a cost to this internal conflict. Because while the INTJ is integrating, the outside world keeps moving. Relationships continue, expectations accumulate, others fill the silence with their own interpretations. And FI feels this acutely. FI notices when something feels off long before it is named. FI notices when values are being compromised quietly. FI notices when the INTJ is maintaining external order at the expense of internal truth. This is where the deepest tension lives. NITE can sustain external stability for a long time. FI cannot sustain internal violation for long at all. Eventually, something gives. Sometimes it looks like sudden withdrawal, sometimes like a sharp boundary, sometimes like an unexpected decision that seems out of character. But it isn't. It is FI finally overriding the system. Not emotionally, ethically. Because for the INTJ, emotional truth is not about feeling better. It is about not living in contradiction. And contradiction is intolerable. This is why INTJs often leave situations that still work. Why they disengage from relationships that still look functional. Why they abandon paths that are externally successful but internally hollow. And I can see where the path leads. TE can maintain it, but FI knows whether it should exist at all. When FI says no, the answer is final. And this is what makes the INTJ conflict so difficult to witness from the outside. The process is silent. The timing is delayed. The outcome feels abrupt. But internally, it was slow, deliberate, and unavoidable. So if you are an INTJ, this is not a flaw. Your silence is not emotional incompetence. Your delay is not avoidance. Your restraint is not coldness. It is respect for coherence. And if you are close to an INTJ, understand this. When they go quiet, they are not pulling away from you. They are pulling inward to make sure that when they do speak, it will be true. Not convenient, not soothing, not strategically timed. True. And once an INTJ reaches that point of internal alignment, they do not hesitate. They act, they speak, they choose. Quietly, decisively, and without regret. Because logic can build a life. But emotional truth determines whether that life is worth inhabiting. And the INTJ will not sacrifice one for the illusion of the other. They wait until both can stand together. If you've ever stayed silent while something inside you was still aligning, this space was made for you. Write your moment below and stay close. This conversation isn't finished.